Hi guys, it's been a while since I've done one of these. I've put the camera up there as you can see. Mr. Savage, let's try to turn that light off. I don't know what that'll be like. You get an idea, a little bit more maybe. Oh, it's not ideal, but I might try and find another camera angle in a minute. But I'm going to do a sheath today, a simple sheath. Just so I'm going to go and cut this piece of leather out, and I'll bring you along for this one. I've got quite a few others to do as well, but I think I'll bring you along for this one, okay? I have a lot of emails and a lot of people requesting me please do some more on the leather, Lee. So you know I'm so busy now with the knives as well. It's very difficult, but you know, I always try and help where I can. And okay, so I'll go and get this sorted, and I've got a few other sheaths to sort out as well, and I'll cut them all out at the same time. Okay, take care, Lee. Okay, okay, so we have a roughly cut out, pardon me, sheath blank. I've got many out there that I've just done as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for 7 different knives. Oh sorry, 2 of them are the same, so it's 5 different knives, plus we've got one left and one right hand in this Field and Forest sheath. Okay, so that's gonna 2 seconds. Okay, maybe that'll be a little bit better for you. Okay, we get to start cutting cutting it out. I've basically taken the template, as I had to do so many off the hide, as you can see. I've just roughly just cut it out, and okay. Oh, I had a lovely gift from Cozy Dan, and I've used this today, mate. I'm going to keep into using them until I feel fully comfortable with this. Obviously on customers' orders, you know, I'm not fully comfortable with the shape yet, and I don't really want to mess this up, so I've got to do it again. But some of the straight lines and stuff I have been using it for. It's lovely, and I'm hoping eventually I'll change over to that as well, because it's really ergonomic. Okay, it's slightly more lighter than I'm used to with this one, but the handle shape is really ergonomic and it cuts great, and the more I use it and the more I familiarise myself with it, it's the curves that I'm not too used to with it yet. But as time goes by, it'll get more and more easier. Just want to check something. I'm sure I've just had to carry my lathe out to send back for repair, and I slipped and my stomach's hurting. And I've damaged all my arms. As you can see, I slipped and the lathe landed on me, so I'm a bit shaky too. Anyway, okay. Yeah, that's okay. 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 Have a little look. They're never always bang on perfect. I always have to fettle them a little. I mean, the one sheath that I do a lot with, the scallops out, tends to be near enough. But I've done it so much, but these are a little different shape. Just gives me a rough idea of. I know these turns here will need just a little bit of trimming, but I trim a lot when. This will be for this one, yeah. This is for that one. There's oil on these. Oh, sorry, I'm basically just putting that on my chest, giving it an initial fold so I can see that's overlapping a little. It gives me a rough idea what I'll have to trim. Okay, so I shall probably do that now. I'll probably wait actually until I put the groove in. I can do this one now actually. It'll give me a lot more better indication. So I'll put the groove in. Now, if you use these V-tools, I have a couple, 3, and I have them all set at different depths, but if you're using these for quite a few different things and you're changing the depth, always remember to check it, because I've done it myself, and I've gone from a 4mm or piece of leather down to a 2mm. I've picked this up not thinking, put the groove in, and it's way too much. It's nearly come through the other side. So it's just something to bear in mind, and it is important. Okay, well, that's not bad at all. What it does need doing is trimming. Okay, can trim, bring this down a little bit there. Just a very small amount. That should take us to the top of that mark there. As it does now. Okay, there's a little bit of trimming to be done. Get a pen. Okay. As you can see, excuse me, if you can just see the pen mark, there we go. Just a little slither really there. This should be not far off at all then really. And then when I come to sort the edges out, anything that is left will be dealt with then. Take a little bit off there. Sometimes this can be if you've not cut truly square too, you know. This is why I love these rulers so much, because they give you a real square edge. Also, I went from the metal rulers, which I still use an awful lot, but these rulers are fantastic because you can see through them. They've got a metal strip on the edge, so they're great for cutting, but you can sort of see through where you are as well inside, and that helps an awful lot. Anyway, let's have a little look. It should be about there we are. Okay, that's great. We'll grab the knife. Yeah, that's perfect. Brilliant. Everything's in proportion. Great. Okay. I'll just quickly show you what I've got to deal with today. Well, for this next few days. I've got the field and forest here. I've got the field and forest there. I've got a dialuma to do, a camp and field which you've not seen yet, which I'll show you a video of, a custom order for another knife, and I've got another couple over here. So there's quite a bit to do this week regarding the leather. Oh, there's another one downstairs. So okay, but I'll bring you along for this build. Okay, I'll bring you back in a second and we'll start looking at sorting the edges out, but I'll do a few more of the other sheaths. Okay, bye for now, Lee. Okay, so the next job is, I've roughly gone over it, but is to do the, now you can do this with a stitch groove, or you can do it with a pair of calipers. I favour the calipers. Sometimes I'll use the stitch groove. It all depends. You know, I'm comfortable with the calipers. I'm just as comfortable with both, but it depends on the look I want, and you know, sometimes I'll heat up a oh, I can't think of the name of them now, and I'll crease the lining. I use this and I'll heat that up. I've got a little and I'll heat this up depending. Sometimes I'll do this on belts, and I'll use this to actually burnish in a line. So there's a few ways around this. Okay, so I've just done a lot of others as well, different sheaths. Right, so that's our line grooved in. Next step, now here I do use an edge groove for this, obviously, because I'm going to use stitching. So I'll figure out where roughly how I want my line to be. Now there's a couple of ways of doing this, depending on the weight of the leather, how far you want the, that light's a nightmare, depending on how far you want the weight in, depending on what the weight of the sheath is. But normally I'll do it more for the aesthetics, and depending on how far I want my stitch line in. So next step is to do that. I've just trimmed the end off. Okay, so I'll go, as I've shown you in some of the other videos, your finger is your best friend when you're doing this type of stuff. It allows you to stop the tool proceeding any further, and light just off the end there, so you're going to have your welt there. I always go back in, especially where the stitching is going to be, and I make these lines a little bit deeper, bearing in mind that this is where, you know, when it's on your belt, and this is what's going to be rubbing on your, there's nothing I can do about that light really. Okay, so you know, I always make them deeper there, because that, you know, I like them to be recessed there. Okay, so next thing, I've also made a pricking iron. I made one yesterday, and I might do some for sale. I'll see, because I know there's not, I mean, there are some good pricking irons out there. They're extremely expensive, and the material I use to make these pricking irons would be far superior to what they normally make pricking irons out of. Anyway, I made one yesterday and it works brilliantly, so I've got a few bits coming in which will help me speed up the process a little. I wanted to make proof of concept as some of you have seen on my Instagram. Anyway, so and the way I've done it, it works perfect. So anyway, okay, so that's where we're at. Right, the next stage is to take a pricking iron, or you can drill your holes, whatever you want to do. And I'll now prick the holes for the belt loop. Okay, just one side. That's the other side. Now what I'll do there is I'll just mark that like that, so there'll be one hole left. That way I'm not running into the other holes, and I think it gives a much prettier stitch. Just use your single one then. That way you've got a run of them running from that way, them running from that way, rather than interfering with the holes you've already done and go back in with the pricking iron, which will change its orientation. The stitches lie a lot neater and truer. Okay, so what we want then is, what I normally do is I use the pricking iron, just to rock over like that towards the other hole, and we'll see how we're going to line up. And they're just off, so I'll try and orientate them a little bit different. Okay, so what I'll do now is another little tool. It's just a scratch hole. Just gently mark a line where I want it to be. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do here is just find centre, and then these will be just slightly longer than the other stitches, but only by a little bit. They should all look very similar once all said and done. Rather than come off those existing holes on the corners, then you'll have one odd stitch. It's better to have two stitches that are a little bit longer either side than a row of stitching that comes along like that, and then you've just got one big stitch on the end or one very small stitch. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so that's that part done. Now, as always, I like to, it's a tool I made. I'll probably make a few of these as well. They're indispensable. I always shave these down. You don't want a big transition from the back of the belt to the sheath. It's unsightly and it's not something I like on my work. So now what I'd suggest is doing your scarving of the edges first here. Make sure you don't go past the stitch line there. Make sure you only go to there, obviously, because this is going to be glued down. So we'll transfer that around, and then we'll come from the top of that stitch line there, gently rock it round the bend, okay. When you come to do the inside, you always could start there, because obviously your welt's going to be there and you'll have a big gap. We'll dig into the bend, whip them off and just come gently off the end there. Okay, we can now get on to the skiving. Okay, Okay, so gently at first. It's very easy to take too much off. Try and keep that line the same. I'll zoom you in a minute. Just nice and gently and evenly. You want to try and take this as even as possible. This is where your tool really needs to be exceptionally sharp. Okay, and flip it over and you'll have all this like that. Just press down and we'll trim them away all nice and neat. Then you have a very neat looking tab end on your belt loop, and it does make a big difference whether you do it round, whether you do a V. You know, I've always done mine this way, this shape. Occasionally I'll do them round, but 9 times out of 10 I've always done it this way, and you can see then there, and it just transitions down lovely then into and just tapers off, and you won't have that big unsightly lump at the back. Okay, so that's where we're at. Always, if you noticed, I constantly test fitting all the time, just making sure everything's as it should be. It all looks nice. Fold the belt loop back, take a look, you know, that looks great. You know, what I'll do is we'll add a D-ring to this, and I always take out a couple of notches for my D-ring there. Okay, which I'll do now, and I'll find the D-ring and I'll bring you back. As you can see, that's too big for the D-ring. This is something else I've always done. I like to keep the thickness there for strength, but it's too big for the D-ring, and I like that fatter, thinner transition on the back. I just think aesthetically it looks more pleasing. So what I'll do here now is take the D-ring, line it up where it needs to be, make a little mark with a pencil, make another little mark with a pencil, just a couple of little marks. Then I'll take a punch, find those marks, should about there. There's another reason why I do this too. It locks the D-ring in place, and it stops the D-ring and the dangler keep sliding up and down the belt loop. It keeps the dangler and the D in place. Okay, so we've now got two. Sometimes I'll come in, and I'll probably have to do that in a minute, and I'll just nick them into little V's. But we'll have a little look. As you can see, it gets stuck. So fold your belt loop like that. Bring the D up. And it should just slot into them little grooves. There we go. Probably will make a couple of little notches, although it's probably about right, that. Yep, there we go. It's very neat. Stops the D-ring from sliding up and down. It keeps everything as it should be. Keeps the sheath quieter, because you haven't got that, you know, if it's just something I've always done with mine. Okay, you still got the rocking motion of your D-ring. This doesn't need to flop about everywhere, up and down, and you know, the whole idea of the D-ring is so that that can sway from side to side, and you can push it out of the way when you sit down. Okay, so that's, I'm happy with that. I mean, you can, if you know, you can come back in and take little nicks out and have it like little V's. It does it the same way. But that's great. I'm happy with that. Let's pop the dip out of the way. So this is where we're at. The next part is for me to put my maker's mark on, which I'll do now in a minute. And have me some dinner, and the next part is the dyeing process, which you know I always keep to myself. You know, I get asked an awful lot about that, so but it's something I've always kept to myself. So, and I shall keep that, you know, just for me. You know, I hope people don't take offence to that, as I've said before, but it's just the way it is, and you know, I try and help people out as much as possible. Okay, so we'll put the maker's mark on in a minute. Okay, what I use for doing my to stamp my maker's marks on the sheaths is a little arbor press. I use a little dauber with water. I'll mark the back. What I would say is, if you're using light colours like saddle tan or whatever, I'd suggest you do all the sheath with water, because you will get a puddle mark and it will change the colour slightly when you come to dye. But with the darker colours it doesn't matter so much. Okay, I have many different maker's mark made by a few different people. Okay. Just put that there. Do the arm down. Being an arbor press, you don't need to, you know, you don't have to go mad with this. Obviously, it's a half ton press this is, so it's giving plenty of pressure on there. I'll pull it quite hard, but not, you know, crazy. You ain't going to hang off the bar. And it does give a nice impression. I mean, some of my other stamps you can heat up and do it that way. What I'll also do with this one, find my other little mark, I'll give it its little LB on the front. I'll just put a little bit on the front. I'll find out where this needs to go. It is the right-handed one, isn't it? Yep. Okay, take that. We'll pop him on. I want it about there. Let me see. Yep. And then I have some out of acrylic. These are out of magnesium. This one's out of magnesium, should I say. You can heat these, obviously being magnesium you have to be careful, and you can sort of burn them in. Sometimes if I've got pre-dyed leather I'll do that, or an uneven leather I'll do that. And there's my little LB on the front. She's in a great place, I'm happy with that. Okay, so the next process then is the dyeing process, and then I'll bring you back and we'll sort the welt out and stuff. Okay, and I'll finish the other 7. Well guys, well, the dyeing process is done. So what I'm going to do now is, this is how I'll go about sorting what welt I need. Always take a bit of card. Saves you leather doing it this way too. I mean, if you're constantly making a sheath, the same sheath over and over and over again, then you just make a permanent template of the welt, the fire steel loop, you know, whatever. But because I do such a varied I do quite a few of these field and forest ones, but I always tend to do this anyway. I mean, each sheath's always a little bit different. Some stuff I keep templates from, like his dangler. I have a little one that I'll use for that. And I've always got my my cardboard ones for the knives, and then what we'll do is we'll come in and draw how we want the welt to be, the thickness, the rough thickness. Okay, so I was just checking something. Right, cut this out. I always keep one utility or Stanley carpet knife, whatever you want to call them, specifically for just cutting cardboard. I always keep this one, just a cheapo. Specifically, I resharpen the blades, but I keep this one specifically for cardboard, and obviously I keep my others for the leather as well as my round knife. We'll just give it a little look, which will probably need a little bit of refining. Okay, come down just a right bit. Yeah, we can refine the actual. I always leave the bit extra there, and we'll cut that off with the leather, the extra off of the leather, so it's nice and snug to there. Okay, I'll just find some leather that'll fit this, I'll bring you back. Okay, sorry about that. So I just went and cut a bit of scrap. Bloody light. I don't know whether it is better like that. A bit of scrap. Just make sure. Okay, and we'll draw around that, and with a scratch awl. Not super critical. You know, your welt material doesn't have to be your best stuff in the world. You want the grain structure to be firm. You don't want the leather to be really loose neither, because what will happen is it will delaminate from the fibres. So you still want really good leather, you know, not really furry and hairy. This might be off the edge, but my hides are always, even right up to the edge, look, there's no hair, or you know, okay, so now we'll cut that out. It's sharpening the blade. There we go, done. Just give it a quick strap. I normally do it, there's a few more procedures I normally do with these when I first start. It's trying to keep it in camera, that is, and because I'm new to the knife as well. I've had this strap board for so long I don't want to wreck it. Okay. Oh, there we go. You want it so it's really gripping that now like glue. Okay, here we go. This will just go through this lock button now, as you'll see. No problem. Okay, it's so important to have your knives crazy sharp when you're doing leather. I can't tell you how important it is. It makes your life so much easier. It's, oh, I couldn't work with a dull knife, especially with leather. With anything really, but with leather it's even more important. Like I say, I always go a bit extra on top and we'll put that to suit. Okay, so we'll probably have to adjust this a little. Okay, right, oh, it's going to come down a bit. Sorry guys, if you... Okay. Stops the old fingers getting tired from the constant pressing of the leather. Okay, this is going to need readjusting. Okay, now what you can do is you can either leave it too long when you come to assemble, and then when you come to assemble, cut it off, or which I'm going to do after it's glued up. I'll then trim, or you can do it, get it all neat beforehand, if that makes sense. Okay, that's great. Then the only bit now that really needs sorting out is this top section here, which I'll now do. Okay. we are. Okay, before we do any of that, I'm going to need to sew the belt loop on and do all the edges. So I'm going to take some edge dye, my dauber. First things first is to do the welt. I always do just in the inside too. So you don't really see that then. And now do these and we'll burnish them. As I've said to you before with these, or if you haven't watched any of my other videos, when you come to do this process with the dauber, don't hang about. It's no good lingering in one place, that's when you make a mess. Put the dauber on, commit, and run the dauber off. Oh, sorry. Again, put the dauber on, commit, and run the dauber. Don't hang about like in one area because you will make a mess and it will overrun. After a while of doing it for quite a bit of time, you'll be able to just get a real neat straight line with a bit of practice with the dauber like. Again, pick where you need to be. I always give a couple of strokes and then start to stroke the dauber on, sort of with my elbows locked in, so I can keep a nice even straight. After a while it just becomes second nature and you can really, you know, go at the piece, and when you're finished you'll still have really straight lines. Don't put too much on the dauber, it's a big mistake. You've got to have some on. When I do mine, I tend to do the one side, like the side facing me, so that's all neat, and the way I apply it with the dauber leaves the back side then to be just running slightly, and then I do that so that's all neat, rather than trying to do the whole line in one go, and then what you get is a real neat straight line. Okay. I'm going to give it a burnish. If you leave your work till the next day for burnishing purposes rather than after you've just dyed, you'll get a much better burnish. I cannot explain why this happens, but you do. Okay, and you'll have then one really shiny. You can't really. You'll have then one really shiny edge. See? Nice and neat too. Nice straight line all the way down. Okay, we'll then do we'll do this one. Once you see it shining, there's no need to keep on going, if you know what I mean. Once you've achieved the look you want, move on to the next section. Just do it in small sections. But when I'm doing a belt, I only do well, real small sections really, I don't know, 6 inch, 6 inch, 6 inch at a time. And then, you know, you've covered it all then. Okay, now we're going to take our board, pop it on here, we'll glue it in place. What we do is we get our awl, find out roughly where it needs to be, use my awl, then to go through the pricked holes. As you can see, I think, right there. There's your holes. What I'll do then is I'll take my scratch awl and we'll give that a keying. Tam on the back. Okay. Okay, what we do now is we take some glue. Now this is not the glue that I use. The glue that I use comes in big pots like this. Right. But this glue, this Craftsman glue or whatever it's, Craftsman contact cement's okay. I did use it till it ran out. And we're a funny old bunch of Leathersmiths, and you get used to certain products and certain contact adhesives, certain pricking irons and stuff like that. And I'm used to this contact cement. And this is what I like to use out of the tin. It comes from Abbey, but it's, I don't mention it because it's not really open to the public as such. Excuse me, you've got to have a trade account, so. We'll put some glue on, I'll let that rest and I'll bring you back. Oh, and all that's doing, whatever you do, and I've done this many times, don't forget to put the D-ring on. Many times. And I've even sewn it up and then done it. And it's not fun. Having to unpick it all, pull the stitching after it's been contact adhesive and all. Whoops. And I'll leave mine on for quite a while. I'll let it dry for quite a while before I touch mine together, and it gives a real good bond. Okay, so we'll leave that like that. I'll watch a bit more on my iPad and I'll ring you back. Okay, I'm just pressing it down, as you can see, without even any stitching. Oh, that's on there now. You just got to really wait and let that glue really dry. Sometimes it's a bugger when you want to move it over a little, but oh, I can't. Okay. Oh, took it off. I wasn't keen on where that was situated. Okay, that's better. Okay, don't forget the only purpose of this, the glue really and truly, is just to hold it in place so you can stitch it. You know, it's not, it does add additional strength as you can see, but it's not for any other, for me it's not any other purpose. Right. pricking iron. Okay, so that now will have punched the holes through inside. Just about to see. What I'll do then is I'll get my freehand stitcher, groover, sorry. This is very important. It takes a little bit of time to master this little tool, but when you do, you can be really accurate with it and do some, you know, you can be real neat with it too. See, you know, you can draw some real neat grooves with this. It just takes a little bit of practice. You know, I've always got lots and lots of scraps, so you know, at times, sometimes when I've been bored, I will well, I don't do it now, but a long time ago I used to practice. You know, I'd draw my name or I'd draw something on there, and I practiced drawing grooves out. So when I pick the tool up now, remember 4 times the for your thread. So, you know, so that, you know, I can be quite neat with it now. Okay. Always cut your thread at an angle so it's a nice little point. Really helps with threading your needles. These are a 004 John James. The size that I tend to use the most. If you're having problems, grab yourself some wax, give it a little pull through, and you'll find that will sort it out. There we go. Okay, then we'll start. Right, I'll sew this up. I'm going to bring you through all this and I'll bring you back. Okay, so the belt loop's now sewn on. Next step is just to glue your welt in, and then there's a couple of ways of doing this. You can either trim it really true. I always take mine to a sander and sand the edges and get them true. Then there's 2 ways of doing it. You can either drill these holes. What I tend to do is I put the line down and I'll go through with a pricking iron, then push the rest through with an awl, and then I'll sew it up. So next stage is to get some glue on it. You don't have to sand the edges, you know, if you haven't got that tool. If you have, then, you know, use it. A lot of cobblers, a lot of people in the leather trade use a sander, you know, to get edges crisp and true. So it's not an unusual thing, you know, being a knife maker it helps, but it's not, you know, something new for leather working. There's an awful lot of cobblers, well, they all have a special machine. It's normally a sander, a buffer and another wheel, and they use theirs for the same type of purpose. In the saddle making industry, I'm not sure, but it wouldn't surprise me. Okay, we'll let that dry a bit. Do the other side. If you find your glue, your contact adhesive is getting too thick, but it's too thick to begin with, if you buy this right off the bat, this Craftsman stuff, it's not too bad. The stuff I use I thin down to a certain thickness that I like to use, so it really penetrates the leather. And it does a good job. As I've said before, yes, it does help with a bit of extra strength, but it's not the be all and end all. The main part is your thread. Buy a damn good thread, a good wax thread, and it's your sewing and your stitch. Okay, I'll just speed this up just a little. You can see how much heat I've used, so you can tell how long when I leave it to dry. I leave it quite a while. You know, you want it kind of dry to the touch, but really tacky. We're getting there, about right now. So sometimes I'll probably leave it a good 15 minutes or so. Rather than just bring it back, I just thought, yeah, that's what you want, the type of sound. So it sort of feels dry really, but this will really stick now. This is where you have to be kind of careful. I'm going to trim this and sand it so it doesn't matter so much for me, but if you're just, you know, not able to do that, then the neater you get this, the better. Sometimes I like to leave a little bit overlapping, obviously, because if I'm going to trim it down, it trims the welt nice to it. But also, if I'm sanding it, I don't really want to be sanding into the sheath as such, because that's already cut, you know, to size. I just want to bring the welt up to the sheath. Set it. Give it a good old wallop. As you can see, I'll leave a good bit hanging over, not loads, I don't know, a couple of mil. Okay, what we'll do now is, I mean, well, what you can do as well is you can key all that as well, and your welt inside. If I'm being honest with you, I don't tend to do all the way so much. I definitely, thinking about the video today, I forget, but I always do the top here especially. That's where all your stress is. But while you're here, you might as well. Sometimes I'll use a little bit of sandpaper to do the same process, depending on how I'm feeling and how neat I want it. Okay, so that side had already had a coat, if you remember. That's really dry now. And a lot of times what I'll do is do that, let this have a coat, and then I'll give the other side a second coat, and I'll find that adds a much even better bond. Sometimes I'll give both sides a coat depending on what I'm building and the application. Just a thin coat now, nothing crazy. What I'll do, that's all dry now. I'll just go over and give it another light coat. Not too much. Then what's happened is that first coat will have sunk into the fibres, sealed. And then this coat will sink into that coat, and then you bring the two together. But you can only do that really if your leather's nice, your contact adhesive is nice and thin. If it's a thick contact adhesive, it's not really going to absorb into the leather so much and actually sink into the fibres, because I actually want the glue to the glue rather than, I hope this makes sense, you know, so then the fibres and the glue, they're all pulling rather than the glue just sitting on the surface. Are you with me? Then when you pour, it's just delaminating the glue off. If the actual glue absorbs in to the leather, are you with me? Then you... Right. I'll try and do this, get this up on the computer. Okay, yep, there we go. See, as you can hardly see the glue at all now, it's just like, you see how it's like all absorbed in, rather than just big globules sitting on the surface. A bit like how that is there. It's a bit thicker there. See? But here is all real nice. And the other side, if you look, it's just glistening. And it's really flat. That's sunk right in. And that's what you want. Okay. So now, I will start at the top. And marry that up first. Okay, I'm not going mad here within pressing on the sheath too much yet, because all I'm doing is I'm just gently just putting the sheath together, just gently. I've not sealed those two together yet really. I'm only just gently touching them together, just so that they're gripping, so I can have a look. So if I do need to move it a little bit, I probably can, but once I hit it with a smooth faced hammer, that's it, it will then set it. Okay, now it's set. Now I'd really struggle to move it. If what I normally do then is put me some clamps on. Normally one, definitely 100% at the top. That'll do, yeah. That's all she wrote for now. I'll probably leave that 10-15 minutes. Then I'll go and trim the edge. I won't bore you through that. All I'm going to basically do is just trim up to where I already am on the sheath. Just trim the XX off, sand to the sheath itself, and I'll then bring you back.